Hi, Rebecca from Two Red Shoes Mortgage Brokers, and I will talk with you about what happens at settlement and do you have to be there. So settlement, that's the day that you own your property. It's the most exciting day in the whole process, unless you're buying land, and then it's a little bit anticlimactic. But basically there are a few things that happen around settlement and we'll talk about them very briefly. Obviously, in the lead up to settling, you've had your loan approved, you've paid your holding deposit, you've paid your deposit on exchange, so 5 or 10% of the value of the property. And then as you're approaching settlement, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to return your lender's docs. You're going to get some insurance organised for the property, and then just a few days before, you're going to get some information from your conveyancer or your solicitor that says that you need to contribute X amount of funds, typically if you've got more contributions to make, and how you go about them. What I'll say to you on that is there are sort of 3 ways that you can do that. Number 1 is you can put the money into your solicitor's trust account and give them permission to draw it out for you. Number 2 is that you can actually run around on the last day and gather checks and then deliver them to your solicitor for them to hand over. There's no way to shortcut that, unfortunately. Some of the information that they need to give you the check breakdowns isn't actually available until the 2 or 3 days before, or sometimes not the afternoon before. So while you might be cursing your conveyancer and saying, why have they left this to the last minute? They haven't. It just is part of the process. The third way, that's probably the easiest way, is if you've got a lender and you can give them authority to draw out of that loan, you can kind of load it up. So if you have an extra $50,000 or $100,000 to tip into the property, for example, then you can sometimes deposit that into the loan, and then the lender can give that to the conveyancer to spend. Sometimes you can deposit it into an account with that lender and give them authority to draw upon it. So as you're approaching settlement, have a conversation with us about what that might look like for you, how that might work best for you. The morning of settlement, or as close to then as possible, you'll do a final walkthrough on the property and make sure that it's basically essentially as you agreed to buy it. So we're looking for, potentially damage that might have been hidden or might have been recent. And then if you do find anything that's untoward, you're reporting that back to your solicitor and your conveyancer, and they take over from there and kind of negotiate with the other side on what's going to happen. Typically though, most people are happy with the state of the property at that stage. They report back and then settlement proceeds. For whatever reason, settlement happens usually at 2 to 2:30 in the afternoon, and what happens at settlement is that the bank's agents for both the buyer and the seller, the solicitor or conveyancer agents for each side, all of you will meet either electronically or in person, and you'll you'll swap things over. So somebody will hand over some cash, somebody else will hand over a title, those will go back into the vaults, and their advice goes back then to the real estate agent who's involved from each side, saying, yep, we've done our bit, we're happy, yep, we've done our bit, they've paid me. And then the real estate agent will give you a call, usually around about 3 o'clock, and say, come and get your keys. This is, as I say, it's somewhat a little bit anticlimactic because you've been so involved in the process right up until that stage, and then you're just kind of sitting back and waiting for a phone call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're doing a simultaneous settlement, that's a little challenging. It happens, it's very frequent, but it's a little challenging. Simultaneous sale and purchase means that literally you're selling your property on the same day that you're buying another property, and that probably means that you're actually sitting in a truck outside your property and crossing your fingers and hoping that nothing goes wrong with any of the transaction. Because that usually involves more than sort of 2 sets of people, it might involve 4, it might involve 6 sets of people. There's a lot of cogs in that wheel that have to all align, and whilst everybody tries their very hardest, sometimes a simultaneous settlement can fall over, and that's the downside, shall we say, of settlement day. And we hope that solicitors and conveyancers can all discuss with each other and get a suitable solution for you. Anyway, the answer is, what happens on settlement day? A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes, none of which you really have to take terribly much involvement with. Just pick up the keys and go and enjoy your property.